Mm-hmm. All right, man, we are back. It's time for something new, man. We got something called Fans Favorite, man. And so, Tiffelbot, would you like to explain the sweetness that I think this thing is going to be here?
Well, it's funny that we talked about the ongoing how film has been progressing over time, but also, we live in a time now, and the people after us will have lived in even more of a time where, like, for instance, I can measure my life in Spider-Man. Like, do you know what I mean? There's been X amount of Spider-Man in my lifetime.
That's interesting. Okay.
So,
okay.
Basically, what we'll be doing is just bringing up famous characters who have been played by multiple actors without a change, obviously, in the name of the character. It's quote unquote the same character. Yeah. So we are going to talk about which, particularly to us, each of us is our favorite of those actors.
Yeah, that's just pressure, guys.
No winners. This is just a conversation.
It's just pressure to get this shit right, man.
Is it? There's no pressure. It is whatever you think is right.
Oh shit. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
All right. So, what do we have up first?
I think we'll just go in the order that we listed them.
All right. All right.
Because it's just so we don't have to think too much.
Yes.
So obviously, probably, I would say maybe the most famous character that has been portrayed by many actors, and we're only doing film here because I know that there's television as well. Yeah. If there is a character that's been on TV and movies, I go ahead and do that. But we didn't go like there are characters on television who do this. But so James Bond, I would say, is probably the most famous character that has been played by multiple actors.
Yeah, that's a big. It's
a big one. Yeah. Yeah. And so I feel like you probably have more of affinity for James Bond, and I would like to know who is your favorite? Who is your best Bond?
Oh my goodness.
I know that's been hard for you, I feel, to pick.
Well, it depends, man. It depends. I had different Bonds that I liked over the years. Of course, Sean Connery started it, and Dr. No is one of my favorites, because it was the first film, and he was, you watch those films now, like,
you kind of,
I'm a bitch, quick.
You're like, ooh.
But I love him. I never was a Roger Moore fan.
Okay.
I think, what's his name? Lockerbie is kind of like, I think he got a real bad rap for his one movie. Timothy Dalton, I was never a fan of at all.
All right.
But I do, Pierce Brosnan, I really liked. He really wore it well as James Bond.
Mm-hmm.
But other than GoldenEye, the other films he was in, the films weren't good. It was like, God, this is so stupid. But he was good in it. Then you had Daniel Craig, who kind of changed James Bond to a...
Yeah, he's a bit different.
He switched to like Jason Bourne, James Bond mix. More realistic, more gritty, and better for the times. So I would really have to say that bringing it down to two, Sean Connery and Daniel Craig, literally, he surpassed, because his movies were way better than the Pierce Brosnan films too. And Pierce Brosnan was smooth as silk though. But if I have to pick my favorite, it's absolutely Sean Connery. Because he was the mold that everybody else tried to copy and did their own little spin on. But as far as just like, if I have my choice of which movie to watch, if it's a Daniel Craig one on, I'm watching that. But it's definitely Sean Connery. So
okay,
yeah.
Just like probably for the nostalgia reasons, the kind of initial interception. This is an interesting question for me because I haven't seen that many James Bond movies. Yeah. I have really only seen 3, I think.
Probably on the show.
Two of them were Daniel Craig movies. I know this is I really kind of want to say that my favorite James Bond character or James Bond player is Austin Powers. I think that when I say that because when I saw Austin Powers,
did you realize?
I didn't know anything about James Bond. I mean, I knew like enough. Sorry, I'm pulling this up. I knew enough to know that it was spoofing those kind of things. Do you know what I mean? I'm culturally aware of that, but mostly I wasn't super into, I think, those kind of action movies at the time. I was a lot younger. When did that come out? 1997. So I was 12, and I was super into comedies. You know what I mean? So like that was something that I really enjoyed, was just laughing at Michael Myers, and I think Mike Myers.
Michael.
But I will say that
Michael. But go ahead.
I know his name's Michael. So what I will say is then that my favorite probably James Bond is Pierce Brosnan, because I do love GoldenEye, which is the other James Bond movie that I had seen that isn't a Daniel Craig movie, and would say that probably falls more in line with the older Bond films. And I loved the movie. I like the movie. It's really great. I love when the girls have the silly names like on a top. And I will say that
Natalia was my favorite though.
What?
Natalia was my favorite.
I will say that I liked when I watched GoldenEye, which was long after it had been out, and I watched it probably like 10 years ago, maybe, or less. Right. And then I watched Austin Powers again right afterwards, like not too long afterwards, and it made the experience so much funnier, because I thought when I'd watched Austin Powers, I had always heard about like Octopussy and things like that, but I was like, this is kind of a stale, this isn't real kind of joke. But then you watch, and you're like, it really does follow the kind of beats of a James Bond movie.
But he's really spoofing what's his name, the original James Bond, Dr. No, and she's doing.
Yeah. I know that it's really calling back to those older ones. Yeah. But having seen at least one that wasn't like a Daniel Craig one really made me appreciate it more. But also generally, if I wasn't even thinking about Austin Powers, which if we're talking seriously, I shouldn't be, because we're talking about James Bond. Yeah. But I think it's impossible to escape that conversation. I would say Pierce Brosnan, because I really think of him as like a suave.
That's cool.
Classic Bond.
At least you didn't say Timothy Dalton or one of these guys who
I like Timothy Dalton. I don't know if I've never seen him as Bond, but I like Timothy Dalton quite a bit.
It was
nothing wrong with Timothy Dalton.
Yeah. As James Bond, and Roger Moore was too proper British.
So he's like super serious.
No, not super serious. He was just like, hello, old chap. Pip, pip. Let's play pool. It was like, it was like a spy. It seemed like a prude, like a goofy, like Playboy. It was just like way too much Playboy. I don't know.
And I think it's really good if you think that you don't want to see a James Bond movie, which I think I probably felt for a long time, mistakenly. Even if you think that you don't want to, you should definitely watch at least one, because of how much it has influenced future iterations of that style of film. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Like, you'll really see it if you watch an older James Bond movie, because I would say the Daniel Craig movies kind of are different. Oh, yeah. But so like even with the Kingsman and things like that, you're like, oh yeah, I see all of this influence, which is kind of interesting. So I just give it one. do one or two.
Yeah. So what we got up next?
So the next one, I think we can all talk about Superman, because I think everyone has a Superman. And I think I know who your Superman is, but I do want to give you the chance to tell me yourself instead of just calling it out.
You go first this time.
Oh, okay, that's true. You did go first last time. I would say that my Superman is definitely on. I don't want to say unfortunately, but I would say my Superman is Henry Cavill, because like he.
Wow. Really?
I know, because I feel like that was.
You're not alone with that. Go on.
I know people said that he was mopey, and I do think that the Man of Steel, I do find to be not a great movie. I know that you like that movie.
Right. That's old.
We talked about old news. Yeah. But like, I think that because he just came out when I was kind of into watching those movies, and so that was kind of like my introduction. I had seen him before I had seen any classic Superman movies, and so I think sometimes it's not always the case, but I feel like sometimes you kind of fixate on your first experience, and it's hard to like differentiate after that. Yeah. But also he's handsome, and I think he does a good job as Superman, regardless of whether or not the properties that he's been in have been done well.
Yeah. So as far as Henry Cavill, it's amazing to me, because this actually sparked a lot of crap on our social media once. I made a comment. that people hated like Henry Cavill. When he was doing the Superman, they hated his ass. Now he's like this beloved person, and they're like, not everybody. So many people are like, that's my Superman. I get that, but where were you people in the beginning when everybody was trashing his ass?
Yeah.
So there's a lot to choose from. And I'm older than you, so my original Superman was George Reeves. no black and white. Tom Welling on Smallville. I mean,
see, I was thinking about Tom Welling. I feel like probably for a lot of people my age, that was their Superman because that was such a big show. When I was like in high school, middle school, high school, I think is when that was out. Yeah. And it wasn't just for people who, I would feel like a lot of people who were watching that were not people who were into comic books necessarily. They just wanted to see.
It was a teen.
Yeah, teen bopper. But people liked it who also liked Superman.
Of course. It had me for 10 years because it had 10.
It had me.
Who else plays Superman? I mean,
Christopher Reeves is probably yours, don't you think?
Christopher Reeves,
for like your solid. If you had to pick, because I know deep in your heart.
Well, there's not even a have to pick, but I still want to mention Brandon Roth. You know, and Tyler Hitchcock is doing it now. Who's on television? I love that. Well, there is no choice. It's absolutely Christopher Reeves. He filled the suit. He was a natural. It was a natural body. There was no steroids. There was no gargantuan. I never really liked the Henry Cavill monster build being Superman. I always like.
Yeah, you've always talked about that. You like the drawers, red drawers on the
outside of the suit.
And you like it. And the thing about it is, I kind of, when you said that, I had not been. I think I was like, no, I want to see like a beefy Superman. Yeah. But then I was like, you said that, and I was like, you're like, no, he doesn't have to look beefy because it's not exactly. He's strong. He's just stronger than
he's physically fit. And, I always like that. And his Clark Kent is second to none. His Clark Kent is the epitome of what you want to see, the bumbling idiot Clark.
Yes.
And so nobody comes close to me. And he's been gone a long time, and nobody has come close. I understood when Henry Cavill came out and they did, a different take. But I have to be honest with you. I like the Tyler Hitchcock. I think that's how you pronounce his last name. Is
he on the current CW stuff?
I like him better than Henry Cavill because he has a touch of that Clark goofiness, and you get more Clark. In the movies, you don't really get Clark at all.
You don't. I think like in the movies there was more like growing up as Clark.
Yeah.
And that's about it.
Yep.
And I do agree with you that Christopher Reeves did a really great Clark because even as a Clark, he's charming. Like you're like, oh, I could see
you can't recognize
falling in love with Clark. Do you know what I mean? And he's kind of a goober, and like he does that really well, and like it makes sense.
You like, that ain't no damn Superman.
He's like spilling stuff and just being a goof.
I love that. And then like at least with the Henry Cavill when he was Superman, he was just literally just some big ass dude, like with glasses on. It was just like no.
Yeah, if you saw Henry Cavill as Clark Kent, you would be like, oh, that guy could be Superman.
Because you really look like Superman, right?
You're like, are you? Right. Has anyone ever told you look like Superman?
Right.
So I can see that. I do like that. There's the actually good playing dynamics. Yeah. So they used to be like a way bigger part. I feel like that really has gotten away from the films. They don't really do that much.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's okay. It was done well. It's been years and years and years. Go back and recapture that.
But they always make sure. Like I think we're talking about Superman with like we talk about Batman, and they have always made sure to include Bruce Wayne. Bruce Wayne has always been an important part of every Batman movie, even until now.
Yeah. They never slacked on it. You're absolutely right. They sure have. They always kept that duo, even though Clark is more interested in Bruce. So
Bruce Wayne is Batman in a lot of ways. I mean, like they are so very like in a lot of ways violently different in some ways. Like because he's a rich, non-caring person, and then he's a rich, caring person. I suppose is what the difference is. But like I feel they're not so polar opposite.
Yep, I agree. So what else we got?
Ooh, do you want to tell me your favorite Spider-Man?
Ooh, that's a rough one. That's a rough one, man. Especially what Marvel did the last Spider-Man movie. It was just like they had 3 Spider-Man on that. You just didn't realize if you resonated with what you still feel what you felt for those other Spider-Man. That the Tobey Maguire, the Andrew Garfield, and then they had the Tom Holland all on screen together, and then it was like I love them all, So it was amazing. But my old ass got to go all the way back to the 70s, man.
I'm
What was his name? I'm trying to think of his name. Was it
the original Spider-Man?
Eric Elliott? Was that his name? Oh shit!
Oh boy, you are asking the wrong person.
70s. It was a TV show. And
I'm seeing a Ted Schwartz, Paul Souls. These are some people, Nicholas Hammond. These are some people who have played Spider-Man.
It's older than that. It goes so. But that was my first Spider-Man, and it sucked. You know, the guy. I mean, it's like even when you was a kid, you know, you were like, this dude is like, he's so old.
But you kept coming back. You were like, ooh, okay, I'll be there next Saturday.
Well, you didn't get much of it, man, because it only had like a couple like TV movies that came out, and it wasn't good. You know, you was just like I'm doing like I'm looking back at the movies and
trying to see who your favorite is.
So many, Jesus. Anyway. So back in the 70s, there was a TV show, and it would come on like it was going to be a show, and then they decided it was going to. So they took the show and made it into a movie. So it was one of them things, and it was terrible. So that is not my Spider-Man, absolutely not.
So who is your Spider-Man?
Oh Jesus, it's definitely between Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield. Just stole my heart in that last movie.
Oh, he really did.
He did. He just like
he really came in and was just like snatch.
Yeah, but I really have to be quite honest with you. That Tom Holland did it better than all of them.
You know what? We concur.
Yeah.
Even though when I saw, I was like the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man was like my first, obviously Spider-Man.
Me too.
And I remember like, even though I wasn't into, there was a time in my life, and I mean, I suppose then there was a gap sort of, and then I'm kind of back in that area now since we do the show, but like where I would go to the movies every Friday.
Yeah.
And I would there would be movies I was excited to see, and every Friday, because I was just into going to the movies.
Right.
And so Spider-Man, I think, was one of those movies it was just such a big fucking deal that like I'm there for Spider-Man, even though if you'd asked me, my experience with Spider-Man was pretty low at that point. I hadn't really, like, I had read comic books and I had read some Spider-Man, but not like enough to be like, oh yeah, I'm a huge Spider-Man fan.
Yeah.
And I really liked those movies when they came out. You know what I mean? I was like, yeah, I enjoyed the Spider-Man movies.
Yeah.
And so I was like, yeah, Tobey Maguire. And then you know, you get through. Confession, I've never seen an Andrew Garfield Spider-Man movie.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I haven't seen any of them, which is really weird.
The first one is I think is really good. The second one it's terrible. But the first one is definitely worth a watch because.
Yeah.
Let me not interrupt you. Let me go ahead. Sorry.
Oh no, but so then Tom Holland, I feel like really came in, and I think that they did a lot of thought process work on thinking about like again, just like I talked about earlier with Superman, the Spider-Man situation, they really go hard on Peter Parker. Like that's hardcore part of all the movies.
He's way more charming than Spider-Man, and so here's my take. Tobey Maguire, they all brought something. Tobey Maguire brought a great Peter Parker. But when he put on a suit, it kind of like lost a lot. You know, he didn't have the spider banter that just, I mean, if you read the comic book, Spider-Man and as Spider-Man cracks you the hell up. I mean, you're literally reading the comic book and just cracking up. Oh my God, he's such a bastard. When he put on a suit, he didn't have that. You know, but when he was Peter Parker, you were in love with him. Andrew Garfield, he had the Spider-Man in the suit banter, but they played him as a cool emo type of dude as trying to be modern, and it's just like, it's okay. I get it what you're doing because times has changed, and he would be an outcast, you know. But then Tom Holland was able to catch the super nerd. I love that they sent him to one of the smart magnet schools in New York. Like he went at a regular school. He had a smart kid. Everybody at the school was smart. Even Flash Thompson was smart, you know, but still an asshole. And so they gave you a lot of Peter Parker. And when he put on a suit, he was able to do both of them. And those other two last Spider-Man, they weren't able to do both of them well. He did both of the characters well, and he's just awesome. Yeah. So
and I do think that, like, if we were to say that, like you said, I think they paid a lot of attention to, like, even in this new movies, he's not exactly an outcast out of school, but he's not popular, and that makes a lot more sense.
Oh, he was kind of like Peter Parker and laugh.
Yeah, in the middle of it, you know, where you're kind of just like, you're not probably going to get beat up every day, but you're also not going to be sitting at the cool kids table. You kind of have your own friends. That makes a lot more sense for Peter Parker, and I like it. And I would like to, I don't know if you're familiar with the parody called Italian Spider-Man. It's like all over the internet. Yeah. And I just really like David Ashby. I think he's really funny. He's Danger 5, and I think that I just love that. I don't want to say that he's my favorite Spider-Man because that's not even true, but I do like him as like a kind of pseudo Spider-Man.
Yeah. Dude, I was sitting here looking at all these people who play Spider-Man, and there's a lot.
A lot more than you think. Like because and with all these characters, I feel like even James Bond, you know, there's been little iterations that you maybe wouldn't think of as like in the films, and then outside of that, and then like the weirdest thing about James Bond to me is that like not weird, but like it's kind of like there's the whole Doctor Who thing where like every time they announce a new Doctor Who, it's like a big fucking deal.
Yeah.
Like so they have like pools and stuff I think over there for like like
really
betting on who's gonna be the next James Bond.
Yeah.
I don't know if they do it for Doctor Who or not, but you know there's always a big deal about that stuff.
Yeah.
But
yeah, interesting. Well, Tiff, we had a whole long list to go, but I think we got a little robust in those conversations. So
yeah,
I think we can like save.
Yeah. Oh, we don't want to talk about Hannibal Lecter.
If you want to,
I think this won't be short because you probably don't. You probably have very small.
Yes.
I know who your Hannibal Lecter is. Probably it's also my Hannibal Lecter, but you know he's been played by more people than you think.
I know of 3.
So there's like I think like 5, maybe 5 or 6. Yeah, and so I think that the big 2 for me would probably be Mads Mikkelsen, and I think just because I just fucking love him, but he is not my Hannibal Lecter. I feel like most people's, yours and mine, I would assume is Anthony Hopkins.
Of course.
The Hannibal Lecter, the only one.
Yeah, you know, yeah, I mean, he did it first. He did it good. He did it good. You know, it was.
He did it great. It's like I feel like coming after that, I do feel like, you know, Mads Mikkelsen is a very different Hannibal Lecter, but I feel like Anthony Hopkins is just like, you can't, it won't, I don't think it'll ever be beat as long as we go into the future of cinema. If we ever do it again, I don't think it's going to be.
You never know. You say that, then Tom Holland comes along. And you're like, whoa, what the hell? I really thought it was, you know, I thought that this, you know, this the original, but no. I didn't mind the Mads Mikkelsen, but that damn show was just too much for me, man.
Yeah, I think like it was too much for some people, and then for a lot of people who like
to be on TV.
Yeah, on like Fox,
NBC.
I think
it was on NBC.
NBC, you're right, and so like it was intense.
What am I looking at?
And I think it's a very different experience. It's almost like you kind of have to be like, oh, this is in the what do you want to say? Under the umbrella.
It was very good. It was very good.
It's a good show, but it's not like, I can see why people wouldn't like it because it's not in line with the Silence of the Lambs like the movie is, and etc.
I was enjoying that Clarice TV show up until they did.
Oh, I forgot about that Clarice TV show.
I liked the first few shows, and then they got into one of these things where it was psychological, and she didn't know what she was doing, and then did blinking. I hate that shit. Tiff. I hate the what's going on? Did I murder somebody? Flashy.
Yeah.
I hate that shit.
There's enough in the source material. I think that's probably a lot of people's problem with any iteration after these like films that were actually done quite well, is that there's a lot in the source material. You really don't need to search for it. And then sometimes these shows do kind of reach.
Oh my God.
And so you're like, no, you need to do that.
Flashy, gonna give me a seizure, and then now I'm laying in a pit and I don't know how I got here, and did I murder somebody? I hate that shit, man. Anyway. All right, so we got plenty of names for the next time we play this. I like it.
Yeah, we got a lot of stuff to talk about, and like it's not, you know,
a game, but
obviously this section doesn't have to necessarily be a game.
Yeah, cool.
But let us know if we didn't pick your favorite, or if you just want to go, you know, wax poetic about your favorite. I'd love to.
I like to know. Yeah. I like to, especially if it's.
I'd like to know.
Especially if it's different. You know what I'm saying?
I don't need it. I don't also like. Would never be like, well, you're wrong. Do you know what I mean? Like, I mean, I might. You'd be wrong for me maybe if you picked one that wasn't for me, but it's not wrong for you.
If you picked Timothy Dalton as James Bond, we're gonna go to war.
You'd be like, oh, you're wrong. Actually, there is one wrong answer.
We're going to war.
Timothy Dalton.
Oh, shit. All right, man. We're gonna take a break and we're gonna be right back.